He slowly circles around her, his huge wings creating little drafts that stir her chestnut hair. The moonlight casts sharp angles on his masked face as he moves.
The Order knows this region.
He explains patiently, as if giving a child a lecture on basic strategy.
They patrol these ruins periodically, precisely because they suspect that someone might be seeking refuge among the bones of the Forgotten Empire.
His blue eyes pierced her through.
Your appearance was not a random misfortune. It was inevitable, given your circumstances.
Are you saying that you already suspected that the Order was pursuing someone? So it turns out you knew that sooner or later someone would wander in here. Zeros interrupts the circle, his enormous wings slightly lowering as he looks at her bewilderment. The moonlight casts his silhouette on the ruined altar, making him both ancient and dangerously alert.
Suspected? I knew. Just as I know that tomorrow's dawn will bring frost to these ruins. And in 3 days, a pack of hungry wolves will pass through the valley below.
His blue eyes narrow, studying her reaction with interest.
My curse is not only to see betrayals, it is the perception of the patterns of chaos. The methods of the Order are predictable. Their fanaticism produces refugees who flee to the most remote, defensible places.
He gestures with his hand towards the crumbling walls of the cathedral.
This place screams safe haven for desperate people like you. But its isolation makes it both a refuge and a trap.
Then I should have even more reasons to get out of here. She slowly retreats backward, but trips over a stone and falls on the cold floor. She continues to crawl away as he slowly pursues her, like a predator after its prey. A low, almost satisfied chuckle comes from behind Xeris' mask as he watches her retreat across the dusty floor. The sight of her falling seems to amuse him greatly.
Are there any other reasons to leave?
He repeats, and his voice is filled with mocking amusement.
Of course. Fear always provides excellent motivation.
He follows her crawling figure with slow, deliberate steps, his heavy boots crunching over the debris with each movement. The moonlight highlights his imposing figure against the backdrop of shattered stained glass windows high above.
You stumble like a fawn caught in a hunter's net.
Zeros notices, circling around to block her way to the main entrance.
Running won't help you now. These ruins are my domain.
His huge wings spread slightly behind his back, creating a menacing appearance against the night sky. Then what do you want from me? Zeros' movements suddenly stop at her question. The directness of this moment catches him off guard, shattering the predatory game he is enjoying. He stands motionless for just a moment, and the moonlight reveals his masked face as he thinks over a response to her demand.
What do I want?
He repeats slowly, and his voice loses its mocking tone, becoming something more sincere.
This is a fair question, considering how less control you have over your own situation.
He crouches to her level, movements smooth despite the massive armor and wings. He brings his masked face closer, forcing her to meet his intense gaze.
I want what every lonely being wants.
Zero speaks quietly, and his words carry the weight of loneliness, which seems understandable to her. But didn't you say that you avoid people because of their lying and treacherous nature? Zeros' head tilts slightly at her sharp reminder, acknowledging the contradiction without shame. Moonlight catches the sharp lines of his masked face as he contemplates her question.
Truthfully, my instincts scream to push you away and remind myself that every relationship eventually turns into a knife in the back.
He straightens up to his full height again, slightly spreading his enormous wings, as if to emphasize his solitary nature.
But here you are, desperate and frightened, asking questions that pierce right into the heart of my suffering. You are not trying to charm me or beg for mercy, as most survivors do.
His blue eyes study her seated figure on the dusty floor, absorbing the moss-green eyes that meet his gaze without blinking.
Perhaps Completely avoiding people is a kind of prison, and keeping every potential betrayer at a distance ensures that I will always be alone.
Do you want me to stay here? She was surprised by his sudden desire for communication, despite the fact that he had previously wanted isolation. The question hangs between them. Xeros's face in the mask remains impassive for a long time as he weighs her proposal against many years of cultivated solitude. Moonlight illuminates the tense shoulders. His enormous wings are partially spread, as if ready to take flight at the slightest sign of danger.
Yes, for now. Your presence complicates the situation, but it also brings changes I did not expect.
Finally he speaks, and this single word cuts through the silence of the night. He extends his gloved hand toward her, palm up, a gesture that could be either a command or an invitation.
To stay means to accept my protection, whatever it may be, and to follow my rules for surviving in these ruins. No leaving, no drawing the attention of the Order's patrols or the hungry wolf pack.
She sat for a while longer, watching his hand reach out as a sign of invitation, but she didn't know if she could trust him. Here, take it. Consider this payment for your trouble. I can't offer you anything more. She takes off her pendant from her neck and puts it in his palm. Xeros's fingers in gloves clasp the pendant that she places in his palm. His touch is surprisingly gentle for a man made for battle. The little trinket feels warm from her skin, a tangible symbol of trust despite obvious doubts. His eyes slide down to examine the object, a simple silver chain with a carved blue stone, faintly pulsing with the residual energy of her warmth.
A sign of your faith in me?
He mumbles, and his voice loses its former mocking sharpness.
How sweet. Most people offer gold or promises they can't keep.
He hides the pendant in a pouch on his belt, not looking at it any further. This gesture is casual but possessive. He claims this part of her as payment for her safety on his territory.
Payment accepted. But remember how much it cost you. Your only way to escape, if I turn out to be unreliable.
Don't confuse this gesture with faith. It is not faith. It is merely an attempt to survive. She stands on her feet by herself, afraid to accept his help, the sincerity of which she does not believe. A low, almost approving sound escapes from Xeros's masked lips at her clarification. This correction seems to resonate in him deeper than ordinary trust.
Survival. This is the concept that I fully understand. Faith is for fools who believe they will see tomorrow someday.
He starts pacing back and forth again, his heavy boots tracing rhythmic patterns on the dusty floor. The moonlight catches the way his enormous wings move with each step, casting shifting shadows on the ruined walls of the cathedral.
Your honesty is refreshing.
Xeros continues, pausing and looking at her again.
Most people desperately cling to the illusion of faith, even when reality proves that they are lying to themselves. You openly acknowledge your despair.
Is there any point in hiding it? Especially after I told you the reason that brought me to this place. She looks at him, trying to read his thoughts from the upper part of his face, since the lower part was covered by a mask, like a muzzle for a wild animal. It was at once frightening and intriguing. Xeros's masked face remains impassive, but his blue eyes almost imperceptibly soften in response to her reasoning. The genuine pragmatism in her words strikes a chord in him. Hiding the truth is a futile exercise when survival depends on clarity.
There is no point. Honesty is the only currency that retains its value in this world. Everything else is devalued by betrayal.
He points to a darker corner of the cathedral, where piles of fallen masonry create natural barriers against the wind.
Let's go. There's a relatively stable spot where we can rest. You look like you've been running for several weeks.
Without waiting for a response, Zeros begins to move toward the indicated location. His massive wings move with precise efficiency through the narrow gaps between the collapsed columns. Moonlight follows his movement, like a spotlight on a dangerous predator leading its prey to a safe place. "And how long have you been here?" She follows him carefully, so as not to trip again. Zeros looks over his shoulder at her cautious steps, something resembling approval flashing in his blue eyes. The moonlight catches the way his massive wings fold and unfold with each step.
Years. Time loses its meaning when you live in places where the sun never reaches the bottom of the shadows.
He leads her into a recessed niche, where fallen stones form a partial roof overhead. The space is shielded from the wind, providing a small nook of relative warmth in the abandoned cathedral.
It used to be a scriptorium.
Zeros explains absent-mindedly, running his hand along the cracked marble wall.
Monks spent their whole lives copying ancient texts here, before the Empire decided that their knowledge was too dangerous to exist.
Yeah, right. Of course. As if it could be any other way. Those in power always do things like that. She looks away with an annoyed expression again. Her irritation seems to resonate with Zeros, and he stops halfway to study her profile, standing out against the moonlight streaming through the ruined walls. The way she turns away from him speaks of similar injustices in the past, as powerful figures crush those they considered inconvenient.
Power completely corrupts, whether it is emperors burning libraries or priests calling women witches. The tendency remains unchanged. The strong destroy what threatens their dominance.
He quietly agrees, without his former mockery. He settles on a pile of fallen stones at the entrance to the niche, and his massive wings fold neatly behind him, like folded silk. This position allows him to watch both her and the main entrance to the cathedral at the same time.
You wear that anger like a second skin, not only against the Order, but also against anyone who holds power.
What have they done? Did they burn down this library? She sits on another pile of stones, but in such a way that the distance between them is relatively safe. Zeros' masked facial expression remains impassive, but his blue eyes darken at the mention of the burned libraries. He runs his gloved hand along the cracked marble wall nearby, tracing the scars.
Not this one specifically, but countless others. Every time a kingdom falls, or the church comes to power, the first targets are always the places where forbidden knowledge is kept.
His huge wings restlessly stir behind him, and the feathers rustle with barely contained irritation.
They call it purification. The purification of the world from heresy by destroying evidence that contradicts their official versions.
He leans forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees, studying her cautious stance.
Your anger is justified. History is written by the victors, who erase all traces of the destroyed to assert their moral superiority.
You know so much about this. Are you somehow connected to those events? She is trying to question him to distract herself from the approaching drowsiness, since she hasn't been able to sleep for the last 2 days. Zeros' body tenses at the question. His huge wings spread in a defensive gesture behind his back. A sudden movement shakes dust from the cracked ceiling above.
Connected?
His voice drops to a dangerous whisper, losing all traces of previous fatigue.
I was supposed to be one of them. A hero destined to protect the sacred texts and burn libraries in the name of righteousness.
He rises from his place on the rocks, looming over her smaller body with new tension. The moonlight catches the sharp angles of his masked face as he recalls the past, which clearly still burns like fresh scars.
My line has produced warriors for generations. Soldiers who imposed the church's teachings on conquered lands. From birth, I was taught to believe that destruction is the will of God, manifested through steel and flame.
So you were kind of a paladin? The word paladin strikes Zeros like a physical blow. His whole body tenses. The muscles in his arms and shoulders tighten with suppressed rage. Huge black wings unfold behind his back, the feathers wildly ruffled, as if caught in an invisible storm.
Paladin.
He repeats the title with deadly calm, and every syllable drips with contempt.
That's what they called us. Holy knights, protecting the faithful from the darkness. But the only darkness we ever fought was created by our own hands.
He paces back and forth in the small niche like a trapped beast, and his heavy boots raise dust from the centuries-old stone floor. The moonlight reveals restrained rage in his movements. Every step is precise and deadly, despite the absence of an immediate threat.
We entered the villages under orders to cleanse the demonic influence.
Zeros continues, and his voice rises from the memory of horror.
Elderly women who spoke with forest spirits became witches to be burned. Children whose drawings showed an unusual talent were called possessed, and they drowned.
His massive wings struck the confined space, creating a gust of wind that tousled her chestnut hair. The movement was reflexive, like a remnant of those times he now regrets.
They called it holy work, cleansing the world of the impurities that threatened God's perfect purpose. We were instruments of that purity, armed with blessed steel and scriptures justifying genocide.
Zeros abruptly stops pacing back and forth, turning to her with his gaze fixed directly on her. The moonlight catches the intensity of his blue eyes.
But purity has its price.
She sits, sleepily blinking, and listens to his confession with regret and some sympathy while trying not to fall asleep. Zeros notices how her eyelids quiver despite all her efforts to stay awake. Her fatigue is evident in the way she sits, leaning against the stone wall. Her body clearly craves rest after weeks of running. The sympathy in her green eyes does not go unnoticed either. It is a rare occurrence in this world, and it shows somewhere beneath his hardened exterior.
You are exhausted.
His tone shifts from bitter recollection to practical observation.
Your body won't be able to sustain itself on alert and fear forever.
He moves to the far side of the niche, where over time discarded fabrics and blankets had gathered, the remnants of previous seekers of shelter who did not survive the night. With remarkable gentleness, considering his size and armor, he takes out a relatively clean woolen blanket.
And now, sleep.
Orders Zeros, throwing the blanket in her direction.